Hey Nick, there's a it's on a very very serious important part of the structure of of the economy uh, with what you've presented here today. The part about the Irish bank being the last guy around to turn out the lights at Stuyvesant. That's a real, I'm pretty sure that's a commercial back mortgage-backed security, but I'm not positive about that. But the fact of the matter is that it's so huge, okay, that you know they're on the knife edge today. I feel, they're like uh, going to be one of the things that determines what happens next. Okay, just put it that way. Um, Blackstone and Tishman getting seeing the uh, seeing the handwriting. But most importantly, your thing on the quants, okay? The what was his name? Scott Patterson, not Peterson, right? Scott Patterson, the guy who I guess wrote that Wall Street Journal article, and himself, I guess, being a Wall Street quant guy. I have not seen that Wall Street Journal article. I'm going to read it after, but you raised, see, to me, you're raising the critical points of relationships. Uh, it's real important that people understand relationships. I might try to, while I'm doing this, to dig out this great one of Frederick Soddy's great quotes about how people really, more than anything, if we're going to have a democracy, need to understand how money works. But anyway, so the point being that they took the smartest guys in the schools, and they took them out of the physics department. That's the key. I think that the people need to understand that quantity, the quantitative science, quantum science of physics, has somewhat of a relationship as a science, okay, to money. Um, and that's a somewhat because one of Frederick Soddy's actual great criticism, he was a Nobel Prize winning chemist, but one of his great criticisms is that there was never really a scientific rigor applied to the study of economics, which is why he got into it and excelled, in his study of money. I digress. But that's what they did. They took the quantum physics types of guys and they put them in with the money kind of types of guys to come up with the more complex structured investment vehicles, and in so doing, uh, accelerated. Didn't take the turn. The turn had already been taken, by deregulating financial services industry and tearing down the walls. But it accelerated it. It not accelerated it. It brought it up, several an order of magnitudes. Because they were now creating financial vehicles and that were complicated, so complicated that the average person couldn't understand them. The average investor couldn't understand them. The average trader couldn't understand them. And the higher than average regulator could not understand them. And so not only do all of those contain somewhere a derivative in there, and the derivative being the black box of financial instruments, of the financial instruments. That is to say, there's an input and an output where risk somehow gets reduced. We ended up having this huge shift of the money flow from the bridges and the cars and the houses and the food and the things that matter to you and me and to all the people that want to have a job and get up every morning that don't. Okay, and into all of this financial services. Now, Nick, you made a comment, and I'm paraphrasing it, but you said something about when society you know, where society was at, that's what was going to happen. Well, that's what I want to promise you, okay? Because that result is there, somebody that might be studying us might say that that's what our society decided, but that would be because they didn't understand our decision making process. Society doesn't decide that there will be huge growth in the M3 part of the money supply, and that it will go to all the non-productive uh, products, because structured investment vehicles are financial products, okay, and not to the other side of the economy that would ensure that we could possibly all be working. Okay, so I don't think that society made that decision, and not only that, I believe society would not make that decision, and in fact, I think society will not make that decision as soon as we get that decision making function back to society. And remember, that's what we propose to do with our monetary reforms. Um, and then it's kind of in keeping with that, Nick, when you said about, you know, they're into that regime, you know, where they have to deal with their own regulation. Well, in case you missed Greenspan and Bernanke and Paulson and all those guys, and Rubin and Summers and all of those guys, Nick, that side is self-regulated. Okay, that is self-regulation. Self-regulation is the name of the game on that side of the equation. The financial services industry, M3, shadow banking, investment banking side is self-regulated. Okay, from the monetary, you know, authorities, from the authorities. Well, maybe I didn't use that word right, but anyway. Uh, you have not only the problem of regulatory capture, okay, where, and it's the SEC, by the way. You know, these are corporations that deal in securities, the Securities and Exchange Commission. So you have the SEC now. The SEC, you got the guys at the SEC. You got the guys that are going to the Harvard Business School or Stanford or wherever they're coming out of, MIT. You know, these guys that are designing the crafting. Really, that's how I look at it. They're craftsmen. Okay, they're crafting these vehicles that nobody can understand. Okay, and they're going to go to work in an industry. Are they going to go to work in the regulatory side of the industry? Are we going to get the smartest guys to go to work on the regulatory side, Nick? Are we going to get this to go to work on the side that makes the money on these things? Yeah, okay, we know the answer. Make the money. So what we have is, first of all, the inability of the regulators to have any idea about anything that's going on over there. So what I would say is they are unregulated. That industry is not regulated, and yet we have a integrated, horizontally integrated financial services industry where you can have deposits of the commercial banks for people like you and me might put our money in there and not want it to be at any risk. Okay, but it's insured, so because it's insured, we don't really worry about it. So until you and I have to bail out the insurance funds, okay. But we don't have a tendency, and we don't care, and that's part of the monetary reform that, you know, that we call for, was to have the depositors in charge of where the lending goes. But that lending is seed lending, okay, over into the other part of the structure, where the the investment banking and shadow banking guys live, and then they can take their side and leverage it up, just exactly like you said, and leverage it up and leverage it up. What does that mean? That means borrow more financial thingies to create more financial thingies and borrow them. Each time we create one of these things, it has a financial value. When it has a financial value, it can be used as security to get money behind it. And so we have that problem that's what's going on. But in the meantime, that can threaten the fractional reserve banking side, the commercial banking side, and commercial banking side, you take $1 million out, you need to take $10 million down. Just a multiplier in reverse, okay? So that's kind of the nature of the problem, but I thought you really did a good job to hit on it, Nick. And you know, we should talk more about it. Thanks, Nick.